Imagine a world that looks remarkably similar to our own. You've got sprawling, complex cities, powerful kings ruling over these massive territories, towering monuments reaching into the sky.
Even prophets preaching in the public squares.
Exactly. But here's the catch. This world exists 2,000 years before the very first human being even takes a breath.
It is such a wild concept to try and wrap your head around.
It really is. And the citizens walking those ancient streets, they aren't made of flesh, blood, or bone. They are sentient beings forged entirely from smokeless fire.
Right.
Welcome to the world before humanity. That is the mission of our deep dive today. We are pulling from a massive stack of sources to explore the world of Al-Jan, the mysterious ancient ancestors of the jinn.
And this touches on so many different areas.
Yeah, we are looking at linguistic histories, the Tassir epic, pre-Adamite mythology, and even medieval Asherite philosophy. We're going to sift through all of it to uncover who these beings were, what triggered the apocalyptic collapse of their civilization, and what they ultimately represent to us today. We'll even get into some mind-bending rumors involving the pyramids of Giza.
Approaching the material with that wide lens is essential, I think, because when you delve into the specific cross-section of Islamic folklore and theology, you quickly realize this is far more than just a collection of campfire tales meant to keep travelers out of the dark.
Right, it's not just monster stories.
Not at all. The narrative of the John is really a profound cosmological blueprint. It is an exploration of how ancient cultures understood the mechanics of creation, the inevitably cyclical nature of corruption, and these invisible forces that constantly shape the material world around us.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting right at the foundation, which is the language itself. The word John originates from the Semitic root J-N-N. The primary, most fundamental meaning of that root is to hide or to conceal. But woven right into the DNA of the word is a secondary, highly specific meaning, an agile snake.
Yeah, that duality is incredible.
Right away, the linguistics establish this tension. You have the concept of total invisibility paired with the sudden kinetic slithering danger of a serpent. It paints a picture of something that is hidden, not because it is passive, but because it is waiting.
And the grammatical application of the term adds a whole other layer of depth to that.
How so?
Well, John operates as a neuter singular for the broader collective concept of jinn. If a classical text refers to an individual, it uses jinni for the masculine or jinniya for the feminine. But John is the overarching, foundational designator.
Got it.
And the scholar Amira El-Zain pointed out this brilliant nuance in how the term is deployed in classical literature. She noted that John is frequently used when an author needs a single encompassing umbrella term for both angels and jinn.
Wow, so it covers both sides of the unseen.
Exactly. It functions as the ultimate linguistic container for all the hidden, intelligent forces operating behind the veil of the material universe.
That linguistic umbrella brings us to a rather tragic piece of lore regarding their current state. While Al-Jan is widely recognized as the majestic, fiery ancestor of the jinn species, certain traditions paint a much darker picture of their present reality.
Yeah, the folklore takes a very grim turn here.
It does. In various strands of folklore, the jinn we might encounter today are not viewed as powerful ancestors at all. Instead, they are considered a devolved, weakened, and heavily punished class of jinn.
The theological weight of that devolution is massive. I mean, it implies a fall from a state of grace that fundamentally altered their physical and spiritual nature.
And the sources offer this really striking analogy for it. The degradation of the John is directly compared to the legend of the Dead Sea apes.
Oh, right. That is a very specific, intense comparison.
Very intense. In that specific lore, a community of humans who brazenly transgressed divine law weren't just punished. They were ontologically downgraded. They were transformed into apes, stripped of their higher rational faculties and spiritual rank.
Stripped of their humanity, essentially.
Exactly. And the texts suggest a similar fate befell the Jinn. The slithering hidden entities of the present day are the cursed, degraded remnants of a civilization that used to command immense, world-shaping power.
What's fascinating here is how the idea of hiding, that core root meaning of J and N we talked about, connects directly to creatures that literally had to be driven out of sight by force.
Yeah, they didn't just choose to hide.
No, not at all. The Lisan Arab, compiled by Ibn Manzur, provides a definitive historical narrative for this. It details how the creatures known as the Jinn originally lived completely openly on the earth.
They were walking around in plain sight.
They were the apex inhabitants. However, they fell into intense corruption, caused rampant mischief, and shed blood on a massive scale. In response, divine armies of angels were deployed to the earth to physically drive them away.
Just a total planetary sweep.
Exactly. They were forcibly evicted into the most remote, hidden corners of the world, and the angels temporarily took over the administration of the earth.
So they were basically the previous tenants of the planet, and they are forcefully evicted for completely trashing the environment and society they were given.
That eviction reshaped their entire identity. They became the hidden ones not simply because they were made of an invisible substance, but by a rigid divine decree. Their concealment is a perpetual exile.
Which perfectly sets up the elemental mechanics of their creation. When we look at Sahih Muslim, we get this incredibly elegant elemental trinity that structures the entire cosmos.
It is a beautiful framework.
The text lays out that humans were created from clay or mud, something dense, heavy, and of the earth. Angels were forged from light, and Al-Jan was created from a mixture of fire.
So you have earth, light, and the volatile consuming energy of mixed fire.
Yeah, and that elemental breakdown fuels one of the most persistent debates within Quranic exegesis.
Oh, absolutely. The scholars are completely united on the Quranic verses from Surah 15 and Surah 55. Those explicitly state the Jan is created from fire and serves as the ancestor of the jinn. The point of friction, however, centers entirely on the lineage of Iblis.
Right. The question is whether Iblis, the ultimate rebel, is the exact same entity as Al-Jan, the father of the jinn.
It is a massive intellectual dispute in the tafsir. Hassan al-Basri argued forcefully that Iblis and Al-Jan are identical. In his view, the father of the jinn and the ultimate tempter are one and the same.
But that's not the majority opinion, is it?
No, it's not. The majority consensus draws a very distinct theological line between them. They maintain that Iblis is strictly the father of the shayatin, the actively malevolent devils, while Jan is the father of the jinn as a broader species.
Which is a huge distinction to make.
It is crucial because it allows the jinn to possess free will, moral ambiguity, and varying religious alignments exactly like humans, rather than just being this monolith of pure evil.
That nuance makes the unseen world infinitely more complex. But I want to pull us back to the JNN root meaning of the agile snake, because the Quran utilizes this specific etymology in a breathtaking way.
Yes, the story of Moses.
Right. In Surah 27, we have the account of Moses throwing down his wooden staff, which miraculously transforms into a living serpent. The Arabic word chosen in that specific verse to describe the slithering, highly kinetic serpent is Jan.
It is such a brilliant textual echo.
The linguistic choice bridges the physical, material snake with the unseen, chaotic energy of the fire beings. It implies the staff didn't just turn into a garden-variety reptile. It was temporarily imbued with the terrifying, volatile essence of the unseen world.
It underscores the suddenness, the raw power, and the inherent danger associated with these entities. They are framed as a highly active, potent force.
A force you need protection from.
Exactly. We see this urgency reflected in the Al-Tirmidhi Hadith collections, which document the Prophet Muhammad actively and constantly seeking refuge in God from Al-Jan. This wasn't some abstract theological exercise for him.
It was an active spiritual defense protocol.
Yes, and he maintained this practice until the specific protective verses of Surah Al-Nas and Surah Al-Falaq were revealed. Once that divine armor was provided, he utilized it, illustrating that the fiery forces of the unseen required literal divine intervention to ward off.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Everything we have discussed up to this point, the mixed fire, the hidden snakes, the divine evictions, is merely the aftermath.
It is just the ruins.
It is the radioactive fallout of an apocalyptic world-spanning conflict. If we wind the clock back 2,000 years before the creation of Adam, we enter the Persian Islamic legends detailing the pre-Adamite era.
This is the intersection where formal theology really bleeds into grand, sweeping mythology.
The Persian texts describe a global, technologically and socially advanced civilization ruled by a king named Yan ibn Yan, meaning son of Yan. And this wasn't a chaotic horde of monsters.
No, they had structure.
They had structured societies, strict laws, and the heavy burden of free will. Because they possessed that free will, they were sent their own prophets to guide them, warn them, and attempt to keep their society from fracturing.
But the narrative of Yan ibn Yan is fundamentally a tragedy warning about the cyclical nature of history. Despite the prophets and the guidance, the Jan multiplied, built their sprawling empire, and ultimately succumbed to their own arrogance.
The power went to their heads.
The corruption became absolute. They began shedding blood on an unimaginable scale, offending the heavens so deeply that it left a permanent psychological scar on the angelic host.
You can actually see the echoes of that trauma later on in the text, right?
Oh, clearly. When God announces the creation of Adam as a new steward for the earth, the angels immediately protest. They question why God would place another being on earth who will spread corruption and shed blood, exactly like the ones who came before.
They had literal PTSD from witnessing the apocalyptic self-destruction of the John.
They really did. So the corruption reaches a breaking point, and God dispatches an army of angels to violently chastise Yan ibn Yan and his civilization. And the commander of this angelic strike force is Azazel.
And for anyone familiar with the deeper lore, Azazel is the entity who will eventually fall from grace and become known as Iblis.
The irony embedded in that detail is just profound. The being destined to become the great tempter and enemy of humanity was originally utilized as the divine instrument of wrath to cleanse the earth of the pre-Adamite corruption.
Wow.
Azazel looked at the sins of the John with absolute self-righteous disgust, not realizing that very pride would soon curdle into the arrogance that would cause his own eternal exile.
And Yan ibn Yan refuses to submit to Azazel's forces. This ignites a literal globe-spanning war of heavenly light against smokeless fire. The texts describe a massive cosmic upheaval.
Total devastation.
The scholar Abu al-Ath al-Samarkandi writes that the pre-Adamite civilization was utterly crushed, and the survivors were driven away to the far islands of the world, banished to the absolute, uncharted margins of reality.
We even have accounts from Abu Bakr al-Shibli detailing brutal skirmishes between the pre-Adamite jinn and angelic jinn. It was a total cataclysmic reset of the planet.
And out of that reset, we get some incredible folklore about what they left behind.
What stands out to you? I want you, listening right now, to pause and picture the sheer scale of the pyramids of Giza.
They are impossibly huge.
For the medieval Arab scholars and travelers traversing the deserts, staring up at those massive stones, the sheer scale of the architecture defied human capability. When an ancient culture encounters ruins so grand they shatter the boundaries of known engineering, the human mind naturally attempts to fill the void.
Which brings us to one of the most incredible details in the source material. A significant body of medieval Arabic folklore attributes the construction of the pyramids of Giza not to human pharaohs, but directly to the civilization of Yan ibn Yan.
They looked at the Great Pyramid and concluded it was a pre-Adamite monument.
A surviving architectural relic built by the beings of smokeless fire before the angels drove them into the sea.
It demonstrates an incredible humility regarding human limitations, while simultaneously showcasing a boundless cosmological imagination. It is a way of acknowledging that the Earth possesses a deep, violent history that predates humanity, attributing the impossible architecture to the supernatural forces that previously held the lease on the planet.
But as grand and cinematic as this world-spanning mythological war is, our texts take a massive, unexpected turn. We pivot from these external historical battles of light and fire and move entirely inward.
We transition from myth to mind.
Exactly. I want to bring in the teachings of the medieval Asharite mystic, Ibn Arabi. In the realm of Islamic theology and philosophy, Ibn Arabi is a towering intellectual force. He's primarily known for his complex philosophy regarding the unity of existence.
Right.
He analyzed all of these ancient accounts, the smokeless fire, the rebellion, the war with the angels, the exile to the far islands, and he internalized the entire epic.
It is a radical philosophical shift. Ibn Arabi completely dismantles the idea that the father of the jinn is an external monster lurking on a remote, uncharted island.
Let's break down exactly how he structures this. Ibn Arabi looks at the human condition and divides it. The human exterior, the physical body, the eyes that process light, the skin, the bones, was forged from dense earth.
It possesses a heavy, dry solidity. You can feel its weight and its limitations.
But the interior of the human being, the primal, invisible animal soul that exists entirely outside the perception of our five senses. According to Ibn Arabi, that unseen interior is the John.
Yes.
He posits that God did not create a John as a cryptozoological creature hiding in the wilderness, but as the inner animalistic drive hardwired into the chest of every single human being.
He transforms the ancient cosmology into a map of human psychology. The John becomes the origin point for our animal powers, our deepest appetites, and our most primal, unfiltered instincts.
It's all happening inside us.
And Ibn Arabi takes the analysis a step further. He identifies the strongest, most noble, yet immensely dangerous power within this animal soul. That power is illusion. It is the human capacity to imagine, to be profoundly deceived by our own desires, and to perceive a reality that simply does not exist. This immense power of illusion is materialized in the theological figure of Satan, or Iblis.
Because the texts establish that Iblis is a descendant of the John.
Exactly.
Ibn Arabi highlights that Iblis was created out of Marij, which specifically translates to a subtle, pure, smokeless flame. Therefore, the ultimate adversary isn't some external entity with horns. It is the subtle, fiery illusion constantly being generated by your own internal animal soul.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it fundamentally changes how we interact with the entire pre-Adamite legend.
How so?
Well, the ancient narrative of the angels violently driving the John away from the civilized earth into the remote wilderness becomes an intricate metaphor. It represents the human intellect and divine guidance constantly working to suppress and exile our own primal animalistic urges.
We're fighting our own internal war.
We are required to perpetually banish our internal John to the margins of our consciousness, so that the Adam, the civilized, rational, and spiritually elevated human, can maintain control of the territory.
So what does this all mean for the listener? It means the chaotic fire beings that supposedly waged war against the heavens, shed blood, and corrupted the pre-Adamite earth are actually a mirror.
A reflection of ourselves.
The texts warning about the arrogance and destruction of Jean Ibn Yan are warning you about the chaotic, fiery potential currently sitting right inside your own mind. It brings our entire deep dive full circle today.
It really does.
We started by examining a Semitic root word meaning a hidden, agile snake. We expanded that concept into a sprawling 2,000-year civilization of fire that supposedly engineered the pyramids and battled angels. And finally, through the profound lens of Ibn Arabi, we realize that the apocalyptic kingdom of Ibn Yan isn't a lost chapter of ancient history. It is the primal animal soul operating inside us every single day.
We've spent a lot of time discussing Ibn Arabi's concept of the internal fire of illusion. But consider how that ancient philosophical framework maps onto our immediate reality today.
Oh, that's an interesting angle.
We live in an era entirely dominated by screens, algorithms, virtual realities, and deepfakes. We are constantly interacting with a world that isn't physically there.
Right, a world of pure illusion.
If the legacy of the John represents the supreme power of illusion, deception, and the subtle flame of Marie, then perhaps the far islands where the Jinn were banished aren't in our subconscious at all.
Where are they?
Perhaps the servers running our digital lives, generating infinite illusions that consume our attention and manipulate our desires, are the new far islands. We might just be witnessing the John building a brand new digital empire of smokeless fire right in front of our eyes.
That is an incredibly unsettling, brilliant thought to leave on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the pre-Adamite world. Keep interrogating the ancient texts, keep searching for the hidden histories beneath the folklore, and maybe keep a very close eye on the subtle illusions demanding your attention today. We will catch you on the next deep dive.